No chewing gum on set. Hi. It's a TAC, or no, sorry, not TAC. A Technics. RS-TR373 stereo cassette deck. Yeah, and it's pretty simple inside. I think you can see what's going on there. A little dusty. I don't think anybody's ever been inside this prior to my intrusion into the chassis, if you will. Nonetheless, why is this open, and why am I making a video about it? Okay, it's I use it, so I mean I use it kind of regularly when I'm have an idea. I just want to quickly record it. I like using this. In this way I don't have to go out and buy a fancy handheld modern recorder yet. Eventually I probably will, but I'm trying to prolong that, and I have plenty of well, you know, these Maxell 90-minute. These are really, I remember these when I was a kid. Well, yeah, there's one of many unique brands, all recognizable by the colors and the designs of the labels, and that Maxell. This was anyway, I've got packages, bulk, like 10 packs of these, a couple of them anyway. So lots of recording media time. I guess I can leave that there for now to be used still, but I don't have any other tape decks, especially, well, this one can record. So it has two, you know, decks, I guess you'd say. This one is playback only, and this one, you know, playback and record. It has Dolby. Here, I'll give you the grand tour. So let's take a look. So there's the front. Let's close that for a second. Oh, isn't that snazzy? Anywho, yeah, automatic door openers, Dolby, you know, pretty basic otherwise. I mean, just standard functions beyond that. But have a little look over the top here. You can see. So looking at these, the belts that I can see, I can only really see them. There's a main. You won't be able to see it from this camera. Anyway, there's a couple of problems. The first one I want to address has to do with the input jack. Well, it's a combination input-output jack. It's one, you can see it here, it's one molded plastic kind of shell, and then the metal work, the contact needed to get the signals to the board, to the circuit board. Anywho, but there's some kind of an issue on the input, not with the playback. Playback is fine. So this side is what I'm currently plugged into. That's the input. So when you record, that's your in signal in. Something went wrong. I don't know if I pushed it back too close against the wall, because there's really, you know, these cables hang over on the back here, and I don't have angled, so I don't think I do. I mean, I didn't have them on here, even if I do have angled RCA cable type cables. But it's possible that just some. I'm hoping that all that's really wrong with it is that, you know, maybe it's just a cracked solder joint, for example. So that's the primary thing I want to accomplish. Secondarily, well, it's also important, but because there are two decks and this one seems to work pretty much, you know, normally for the most part, this one, there's something wrong. I think I might need to look at it and see if I can replace some belts. Maybe that's what's gone wrong there. Based, it just doesn't, nothing moves. So that's, you know, after X number of years, the rubber, or whatever the material is, rubber-like material, whatever they use or used at that time for these belts, it breaks down, and yeah, they often just turn to kind of mush, really, after 30 or so years. Yeah, so that I might do secondarily, because the thing about that is it's, I guess, you know, you can see this whole mechanism. Well, if we get there, I'll take these, come out. There's, you know, each one is its own little unit, but they're basically identical in overall design, like the two circuit boards, and everything kind of packed in really tightly. But that's kind of the problem, is that everything's packed in really tightly, and servicing one of these is, well, I don't know, because I've never worked on one exactly like this, but I have with other brands or other models in the past, and yeah, it's a little finicky. So, you know, that's a little secondary challenge. I can get away without doing that, because this one, as I say, seems to more or less, more often than not, it works. When you press play, it plays, and it records, and I mean, that's what it's meant to do. So, first things first, right here, this is the input side. When I come back from the break, I'm going to have removed all this internal, these two boards, because I think this is all actually attached. You know, this is, even though they're separate little circuit boards, the power transformer seems to bridge them and be attached, and I have no interest in desoldering that or dealing with that, so I'll bring it out, I'll take it out in one fell swoop, and then, because I need to get to the underside, I need to look at the solder joint and see if I'm right. Hope I'm right. Otherwise, oh, the other weird thing. So I didn't tell you really exactly what's happening, but it cuts out, like one of the channels is almost always cut off, like input wise. If I was, you know, the signal's coming in there, and yeah, it's cut off on the one side. So you know, maybe I can kind of illustrate it a bit. So when you put it in record mode, it doesn't start recording, it goes into like this standby mode, and that's flashing, and you have to hit pause to get, you know, things happening. But so, you know, we'll get some signal going, and I should be able just to kind of, well, you can see I'm shorting out across both. It should, that noisy signal should consistently show up on both sides, at left and right, but you see it's only on the left, and there occasionally it pops through. That's the main thing, but the other weird thing it does, maybe I can get it to do it, I think there might be a bit of, see, the only, occasionally I noticed it was pegging the meter like it was like just some huge feedback loop, right, like just, and this, I'd have to turn this right down to stop it, and it's something to do with that too, and I think it might be shorting. It's the only kind of theory I have as to what might cause that behavior. I know it's related to that because moving the actual plug on the back, the RCA, stops it. You know, it's something to do with that. So I think it's, you know, there's a bit of a, anyway, I might need to replace this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do that, because if I was to try to order that, I wouldn't really know how to describe it. You know, I know what it is in the vague sense, or the basic general sense, but it's very specific, and I wouldn't exactly know. So I might have to get creative, if that comes to it, if it turns out there's something wrong. But it's so very simple. It's just two metal sections, right? And I should, if something's misaligned, I should be able to bend it back into place, for, I would think. Or so hopefully I don't have to try to source out that on you know, specific part. Yeah. So anyway, stick around for part 2. I wasn't going to record this part, but I had to break in with a little, I don't know, something, a little bit of advice, maybe, if I can leave you with anything of use and importance. It would be this. So, you know, I'm happily going along, removing the the various screws, right? I'm using this. You know, it's a precision screwdriver, I suppose, right? It's a thin handle, so the amount of anyway, everything's going good, and I'm reminded of an old adage, and this never seems to fail, and this is one thing maybe you can just take away with you from any of the videos I ever end up making. Henceforth, the simple saying is there's always one. There's always one. What does that mean? There's always one. Whatever it applies to all situations in life. There's always one, whether it be a person, a play, you know, and mostly in this case we're talking about inanimate objects, and specifically screws. There's always one that refuses to cooperate. The rest of them come out like butter. But there's always one screw, and it's just back here. I'll point out the little offender right here. Just doesn't, you know, for whatever reason. I don't know. Can't explain it. Just know that it's very. I just know it almost always plays out and comes true. There's always one. So, having that information in hand, what do? Well, we have some coping mechanisms in life. And in this case, when dealing with screws, here's my coping mechanism. Okay? Why? I think hopefully you know immediately why this is the coping mechanism I've chosen. I haven't tried this yet. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is my coping mechanism, so I'm going to stick by it. Let's see if it works. Let's see if I still have issues. No, that's it. That's it. Right there, okay? There's always one. But come prepared. You do. You will. You have. And, you know, you might just have a plan B ready to go. Welcome back. As you can see, we've now removed the innards and have them on the slab, as it were. Interesting design that I've never come across in my travels thus far. I'm sure many of your viewers out there are familiar with this. I think it's pretty clever, as long as there are never issues. Anyway, we'll get to, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just what it is, though, because maybe that needs to be made clear before I start, whatever, thinking further about the pros and cons of this type of a design. But this is the power transformer. So, you know, on this block here is there's nothing really there. There are no passive or discrete components. You just have connectors. So you have input AC. You have this. I don't know. You know, it was a thing at one time that stereo equipment had a jack on it, so that you could plug. I guess the idea was you could plug the next piece of equipment into this and keep them all together, and maybe it's to help solve ground loop issues, etc. So yeah, you see this secondary jack. It's just basically, I'm gonna hazard a guess, it's a duplicate of the first. There's just jumpers. So yeah, it's just this passed to here. The next piece, the tuner has one of these, and you plug the, on and on. So that's kind of interesting. But that's common. This may be common too. I've just never seen it. But this is the power supply transformer. So it takes that 120 on this side. That's your 125 volts, let's say. That's what the wall outlet supplies. Boom, comes in on this side. Flips it around, higher and or lower. And to be honest, all of this is low voltage stuff, so it's whatever it is, 12 volts, 9 volts, I don't know. I see 5 pins on this side, so I'm going to guess, there might have been at least 2 discrete voltage levels. But it just slots in, it just plugs in. This whole thing's super modular. It's like, it just, instead of, usually a transformer is like, in the circuit board, right? Or hardwired, and this is just it's like this modular kind of design. It's I've never seen it, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, let's remove that. So there you have it. So yeah, let me bring the roaming cam, the action cam into the fray here. So there you can clearly-ish see those input output, primary, secondary. Primary, these two, those 5 pins would be for the secondary. There might be 2 windings, one with a center tap. I'm just throwing it out there. There might not be any such thing. I'm just guessing by you know, just looking at the pairings. 2 different voltages, and one has a center tap. You know, who knows? Interesting, right? I mean, things like this, though, before I wrap this up, these kinds of things, you know, like this tape deck, you know, say I couldn't get it to work, right, and it just, you know, you're just throwing this thing out, you know, there's a lot of stuff on here that's reusable in projects, these kinds of input connectors, for example, and a transformer like this, probably useful for modern electronics projects. So, you know, it'd be a shame to just chuck these things out. You know, it's not that they can be recycled, but that's not really the issue. I mean, as far as the rest of the board goes, you can reuse a lot of these things. You just desolder. You've got like trimmer capacitors, trimmer pots, whatever, right? These might be a couple of inductors. I don't know. Actually, to be honest, I don't know, but you know, those things will be some regulators, possibly diodes. You can see this is still part of this is the filtering section for the power supply, I believe. So after we come off the secondary of the transformer, right, now we got to do some business. It's got to be rectified. I see 4 little diodes right in a clump there, and you know, we've got to deal with some crap. For instance, there's what they call, you know, what's referred to as EMI, RFI, you know, these things, these high frequency, for example, RFI, radio frequency interference, electromagnetic interference, I believe EMI stands for. You know, some of that stuff has to be bypassed so that you can buy it, like a cap like this. This little ceramic here might be there for just that very reason. Just to bypass high frequency jibba jabba from the AC, the wall, out, because you know, you don't want that getting into the amplifier and then into your signal chain, right? So, and then, you know, after also dealing with the ripple, AC ripple, you want to make what you're doing here is rectifying it so it's only moving in one direction. So then it starts to approximate what you would get from a battery, just a standard DC direct current battery. It's starting to look like that, but it still has ripple, okay? There are these droops, little dips, so you have to have some capacitance, some storage, if you will, some quick duty storage that can fill in those gaps. As soon as it starts drooping, it fills it in, and what you end up with at the end of this is something very close enough anyway to direct current that you can just kind of call it a day and then focus on the rest of the business of what you're trying to make. So yeah, again, I mean, this whole section is useful. You could potentially just have this section and that, and you'd have a pretty nice power supply for something entirely different if this was no longer useful to you, right? So I don't know what I'm saying. I wasn't planning on going on about this. I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm just saying this is how I kind of look at things this way more and more, and try to think about how to reuse stuff. So anywho, but back to the topic at hand, or the problem at hand, if you will. Just gonna put this down for a minute. I'm gonna flip this board over. So what I wanted to do was look at those 4 large metallic pads, or those are that's solder joints, left and right, and input and output, okay? That this is everything comes in and out for this device, this tape player, right from here. And now I had a quick look, and I can see it already. it's broken solder joints. They're broken. They're cracked. It's what happens when you have a thing, you know, hanging 90 degrees off a board. It needs to be, how do I say it? Like, it is screwed to the chassis. There's one screw, so there's some strength. But clearly there are other issues. Once you plug your cables in, those cables hang off the back of here, and they have weight. So now they can pull on this. If anybody nudges or trips, that can put stress and force on this area. Anyway, I don't know, maybe you can't even see it. This camera can't really, I don't think, focus. But when I wiggle this, nah, I don't think it'll barely show. Anyway, they're broken. I was right. Two, well, A and B, both sides, in and output, in and out. Playback and record. So there you go. So, you know, I'm going to say that for this part of what I mentioned, as far as what needs doing, I think we're in luck. This is about as easy as it gets. As long as you're kind of comfortable with your soldering iron, and you know, then you're probably just fine. Although I will say one caveat: I don't think this is going to be a candidate for that. But when you run into lead-free solder, you're going to have that opens up some different problems, and I'm not an expert on it. I'd still like to actually know how to handle it and deal with it a little better than I have in the past, because I've struggled to desolder and then, you know, work with lead-free solder, like a circuit board whereby all the connections are made with lead-free solder. It's a little trickier, I found. I know there's easy methods, and once you know them, it's like nothing special. But anywho, I'm almost certain that that's not going to be the case here. This is of an age and an era when such considerations were not given. So I guess I could, I don't know, I'll figure out, maybe I'll set up a B-roll shot, a real nice close-up of me soldering two little solder. It's really not that exciting. Probably I won't do that, to be honest. But I'm going to fix that up, and we'll be back shortly. Well, after weighing the pros and cons of it, I decided against the fancy B-roll macro shot of me soldering or touching up these solder connections. I don't think it's really that exciting, or something you have never seen before, I'm going to guess. So let's just get it done, because this is about as easy as a repair will ever get in my experience. Anywho, can you see how that look? That nice. Okay. Anyway, let's have at her. Yeah. Let's see if the tip temperature is good. That's always important. It should already. Actually, that's not bad. That is not bad. It's a little slow, but this is not this tip is too small, and it's the biggest one I have for this soldering iron presently. It's going to have to do, and there's no. This is just a connector. It's just metal. It's nothing to damage. It's not like one of these ICs. You don't want to be dwelling on this for very long with the heat, right? This is different. This is different. You don't have to worry about damaging components. I mean, there's things downstream and upstream or whatever from it, but you know, it's not just existing in isolation. But you know, yeah, it's good enough. I'm just going to touch all of them up, because what I would like, I do have a nice, actually, quality microscope, and I should figure out how to incorporate that into my video making repertoire, you know, because I think then I could have shown you what I was seeing. Like, I can see just well enough with my reading glasses. I can tell that these were all. Well, no, the two main ones, the two front ones here, were definitely cracked. I don't know if these back ones were also cracked, but most likely yes, quite possible that they were. But anyway, so that should do it. I mean, like, the thing is, like, even, you know, the old, what's that old saying? Even the best laid solder joints fail once you put them, you know, on a 90-degree hanging mass or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things, eh? So, like, I mean, that's it, really. And I will put this back together and test it. I'm willing to bet that it works, but that was it. The only other possible problem, and I don't see anything, would be, say there was something going on with these contacts, and you know, I don't know if you can see that edge on very well, but I mean, they look undamaged to me anyway. Maybe this will be good for another, 20 years or so, and by then I'm sure other things will have broken down on it. So with that, I think that, I mean, I wish I had more for you. Sorry, not the most in-depth of repairs today, but hey, I'll take it. It means I can get this thing back in action quicker. Like, I don't learn much, unfortunately. I'm not going to learn anything new about a new IC or something, or some new aspect of how something like this works, but on the other hand, I can use it, and that's also great in its own right. So I'm going to leave it at that. I thank you for watching. I hope you were mildly entertained, and yeah, till next time, take care. Bye for now. Okay, I was just going to wrap up without putting it back together and showing you that it works, but that's not my voice. That's just something else off of YouTube. I'm just getting the audio from my cell phone. So anyway, here we are. You can see it working, and I can see it working because I hadn't seen it working until just now. And I know that the repair was more or less probably successful, because now we have signal on both channels, and kind of, I mean, the record level always worked. There's never an issue with that, but yeah, that was the whole thing. Now I can do my thing again with this, and go merrily about my my day. So there you have it. Technics RS-TR373. Yeah, I don't know how old it is, but I know that I'll get a little more use out of it before I finally retire it, and that's probably the best you could ask for. So once again, or for the first time, if I edit the first one of these out, I thank you for watching. I hope you were at least mildly entertained, and that you'll come back again someday. Till then, take care. Bye for now.